Hello team and welcome back to another Line Warcast. This is your map today in a 1v1 between akamisc in blue and Someone Said That My Nickname Sucks in red. This is from the T2 2023 tournament that is going on in Line War right now. Between these two players, a lot of folks in the predictions have had either one of these players winning the whole tournament. Definitely some of the top players in this tournament right now, akamisc and Someone Said That My Nickname Sucks. Also, special shout out to Someone Said That My Nickname Sucks for doing a lot of the logistical and operational planning behind this tournament and making sure folks are playing their games and building the bracket and all of that. And then of course to akamisc for being in the community for so long. In the Discord, of course, if you haven't joined the Line War Discord, it's a wonderful place to be to ask questions, learn more about the game, talk about strategies, a whole bunch of stuff. This is game one in a best of three between these two players in the upper bracket. So the loser of this series will go down to the lower bracket and will still have an opportunity to play for the grand finals of the tournament, and the winner will continue on in the upper bracket. It's kind of a double elimination bracket. You can do some Googling to figure out exactly what that is, but it's just a tournament format that allows any player to lose 2 games and then they're out of the tournament. So you got to lose 1 series against somebody free of charge, so to speak. 2 towns and an airport for Nickname immediately, who's building transport jets and building 3 barracks right beside this airport. So clearly this is going to be commando drops from Nickname, which I feel like a build synonymous with who Nickname is the commando drop. This is one of the maps in the tournament that is all players are playing on a bunch of predetermined seeds, so they all know which ones they need to prepare for, ones they want to practice on, and this is what we got. There is a trade route on the right hand side, and clearly red is going to try to make a play to build this trade route, or at least take control of this town and port that's on the north east side of the map. I got east and west mixed up, sue me. And eco-wise, 437 for AKA and 450 for Nickname. AKA's got these 2 barracks, building helicopters out of the airport, a town, a farm, and building SAMs immediately out of the factory. Nickname is going to start transitioning into helicopters as the 2nd unit out of the airport. And as soon as there's a second commando, we will see a commando drop probably somewhere over here, I would suspect. Nickname might also go to the left-hand side, and that's actually what's going to happen. This is Nickname's command using the transport plane and the commandos to land on this territory. And if we go top down, Nickname's... I don't want to say boxed in by any means, but there's certainly the potential for blue to cut off this choke and then kind of box red into the top right of the map. Pardon me. And tanks from Nickname out of this factory. So this will be interesting. We haven't really seen much tank play from players in this tournament, or that, I haven't seen much tank play from players so far. It'll be interesting if red decides to build some tanks and keep them at home and then wait for 3 or 4 of them to actually start making an attack, or Nickname could just send out 1 tank at a time. It's open field between red and blue's base, and this is what Nickname's vision is. So they can see that this town exists, but doesn't know any of the producers besides that. First transport plane is on its way, looking phenomenal. We all know that transport planes are the coolest unit in Line War. Undisputed. And for AK, there's this barracks down in the south is going to do a lot of work, because it allows blue to cap to the left-hand side and then also to the right into this part of the map. The one problem for blue is that there's a lot of mountains and forests here, and infantry will move much more slowly through the mountains and forests, so it'll take longer for blue to cap this. But in the meantime, AK is going for a second factory, 3 barracks already done, and 2 helicopters now complete. Nickname going for this little run around with the red infantry, potentially as a scout to see where AK is and whether they're already in this part of the map. And now we see these 2 commandos landing on the left-hand side. AK will not know about this commando drop. Potentially in the fog of war, blue would have seen the red plane for a split second as it dropped off dropped off those commandos. But of course, I mean, that remains to be seen. We'll see if AK starts sending planes over to the left-hand side. Clearly, Nickname's going to take these two commandos and start building and like capping this territory so that red can build factories or barracks or whatever in the mountain range for that stealth bonus. And for, in a lot of ways, like the implied defensive bonus of building producers in mountain ranges, because, as we mentioned before, units move much more slowly through mountains and forests. So when the blue units show up, if they really want to push those producers, they're going to have to take a long time to actually get there. It'll give red more time to prepare. Nickname goes for this one SAM, kind of dives on it. I don't believe this one helicopter that's like Tokyo drifting around is actually going to be able to destroy that SAM, and the SAM might actually get the helicopter here. The strength of tanks that we've seen is exactly what just happened, which is they're great at running down SAMs in open area. So this sort of resets the SAM count for AK to just one SAM for blue. And good job for blue to start to try to chase down this tank. And there you go, the SAM actually destroys it. We saw this more in the last patch of Line War, this dance between tanks and SAMs. Tanks trying to jump on the SAMs, and then of course the other player trying to snipe the tank before it can do that. And so far this has gone okay for AK. I think destroying two tanks and then losing only one SAM is actually better for blue than it is for red. Nickname has elected to keep just one transport plane and is building helicopters from now on. Here comes this other transport drop from Nickname to the far right side of the map. And the beep beep that we just heard is AK running low on energy. And for AKA's sake, if we actually top down, I guess this would be the refinery that AK will want to build. There's somehow one infantry from this run by from Nickname that's actually been able to get this far. And luckily for blue, it hasn't actually spotted anything. Clearly the main part of the fight is up here. If blue can just win this fight and then start pushing towards Nickname's base, it won't really matter what's going on the rest of the map. I think at that point it would just be a blue victory. Income 560 for red, 679 for blue, so definitely a huge advantage for AK on the eco. But as we've seen so many times before, Nickname I think is very good at coming back from eco deficits. Two barracks on the left hand side, once those start producing infantry, it could cause a little bit of problems for AK, who fortunately for blue is pushing quite well here, has a lot of infantry advantage. Still has all these helicopters, but in the top right, there's no energy for blue. So the helicopters right now are grounded. We probably assume that this refinery is being built, and it is. And AK is the first one to get to this bottom right part of the map. Two commandos for Nickname on the right hand side. Very likely we'll see a barracks go down for red, as long as Nickname feels that they're able to defend the frontal push from AK. It is 4 barracks and 2 factories in an airport against 4 barracks, 3 barracks, 2 factories in an airport for blue. So relatively even production on this main front. The great thing for AK, I think, here is that there are 4 SAMs, pardon me, which is kind of enough to deal with how many helicopters that red has fielded here, as long as AK doesn't lose a bunch to this one tank, or in general, like, the red units taking on these SAMs. It'll be a big deal if this one SAM lives, and it does. So it's 4 SAMs, a 5th one showing up. And now artillery pieces from AK out of the factories. I don't know if there's a mix of artillery and SAMs coming out of these blue factories. I wouldn't be surprised if it's entirely SAMs for AK now that there are these 4 SAMs for blue. because it really is enough to deal with what is only going to be one helicopter now from Nickname. These two barracks are up and running, the two commandos on the left-hand side, and if we go top down, a lot more blue than red is what we're seeing. Nickname's built a barracks to contest this part of the map, and this part is very important. I think there's a lot of eco, a lot of different territories. There's a city down here as well. So at some point, if this turns into a stalemate, that bottom right part of the map turns into a huge deal. 650 eco for red, 769 for blue. Also, as an aside, when I do these casts, I don't include the picking phase. I know that there's different opinions whether it's interesting to watch or not. Let me know in the comments if you'd like to, you know, for me to cover the picking phase. I'm always afraid it's just like me sitting around and waiting for the game to start in that case. And that transport plane gets out of there, which is actually nuts. It's one of its engines is on fire clearly as it's flying down to the south. But I suppose as long as it's intact and can drop commandos, everything's fine. This is the route that it's taking. And the fact that Nickname is starting to drop commandos right where AK's base is, we can actually see what Nickname's vision is. It's just going right towards this town. It almost makes me feel like Nickname, it's almost a desperation play. Because presumably Red knows that this is where all the production's going to be. And I was going to say, worst case scenario, this transport plane does get a great scout, and it does see all the buildings that Blue has. Here comes this tank run by on the 5 SAMs, 6 SAMs, never mind, I can count for AK. And some of these SAMs are damaged, so the tanks might actually be able to pick up a few of these units. And in a magical scenario where Red's actually able to destroy all these SAMs, then it'll allow these 2 helicopters to do a bunch of damage and potentially turn the tides for Red in this battle. We did see this dig in. AK clearly tried to go around it for a little bit. It's the helicopter support that's gonna doom this proxy base for Nickname. Because with the 6th helicopters showing up, I think in addition to these blue infantry, Nickname's gonna lose these 2 barracks, which is an enormous deal on the left-hand side. AK has got 2 barracks and a factory that's gonna be able to cap all of this. And so really the only advantage that Nickname has is probably on the right-hand side, and maybe this 1 barracks that's capping in this territory. We did see in the bottom right though that AK has got another barracks on the way. So Blue might actually have more units than Red could ever build. And my guess is that Nickname wouldn't feel super uncomfortable with how this fight is going. Specifically because these SAMs have now been dealt with. And this is that top level play. The helicopters show up just as all these SAMs get destroyed. There's only 1 left. It can't take on this many helicopters. But as more sorties of helicopters go to the left-hand side, that's looking worse for Nickname. So the 5 helicopters do snipe that 1 SAM, so now it's just open season on these blue units. Nickname's still using commandos to try to go around to get on top of all the production. And no extra transport plane from Nickname, so the commandos will probably just stay on the ground from now on. 2 towns on the way for Nickname on the right-hand side, setting up that trade route. Huge win for AK in this forest and mountain. If there were a bunch of SAMs here, maybe Nickname could have held, but it's always tough. It's not like Nickname would want to build a factory and a barracks there. When 2 barracks are so much more attractive because they can do so much more capping on the left-hand side than 1 factory could do. 770 income for Red, 951 for Blue. That's looking great for AK. This 1 barracks is now completed in around these mountains, and Nickname's building a factory here, which could go for SAMs, it could go for artillery pieces. I think it's unlikely that this factory in the bottom right goes for tanks, just because of the geography of the map down there with all those mountains and forests. And these infantry will likely snipe this helicopter. But I lied. It gets out of here. But the strength of what the tanks have done is because now blue has to make some SAMs instead of artillery pieces, or even tanks or whatever that blue would want to make. Both the factories, building the anti-air units. But I think this is probably a tough position for Nickname to come back now. The entire left-hand side is very firmly in AKA's hands. The only real way that Nickname can get here anymore would be to commando drop, but there's no transport planes. So that's a bunch of eco that Nickname will be able to take control of. Three SAMs for Nickname here, that's a positive for red. But this helicopter count for blue continues to grow. If all the helicopters for blue were to jump on these three SAMs for red, the helicopters would win, pardon me. But right now they're trying to chase down this one tank. And you don't need to understand line war to see that there's a lot more blue than there is red at this part of the map, very close to Nickname's base. In theory, red could dig in here, but it would just mean that Nickname gives up so much territory to this blue army. And eco-wise, that would be very difficult to stomach. There's one port, perfect timing. There's the second port on the way, so Nickname does have a trade route that is incoming. Maybe these 4 commandos can do a bunch of damage. If the commandos can destroy both the refineries, then all the blue helicopters stop moving. And clearly that would be a very big deal if Nickname can pull that off. 1063 income now for AK, who's over the 1K mark, but 930 for Nickname. So not too far off. AK is still building SAMs out of the factories. And also is able to pick off one of those tanks, which is a big deal. And we can see AK's vision. There was a nerf to commandos. I mean, the patch feels like it was, what, 2 months ago now? Ish? But once these commandos get actually close to these buildings, they will be detected. I don't think at this moment that AK will have any idea that there's commandos here. And Nickname's spreading them out, so it's going to be even more difficult for blue to actually handle them once they start doing damage. There are helicopters from blue that are in range of defending these refineries. We'll see how quickly AK is able to respond to this. And it is SAMs out of this bottom right factory. And AK adding another barracks and another airport, which I think puts Nickname on a little bit of a timer in the bottom right. Just because there's a lot more blue units than red units. And here comes this dig-in from Nickname. SAM's being created from red. Port is nearly completed. This will be a huge income boost once it's actually finished and the merchant ships are going. And one of the refineries is destroyed, and I believe the second one will also be destroyed. If these two commandos only focus on the refinery right beside the water here, then red's going to have a few moments where no blue helicopters can fly. Usually I think what happens in situations like this is, although Nickname's been able to destroy these two refineries, AK is going to immediately rebuild them off of a decent economy, and then be prepared for the next time that the commandos would show up. So ultimately, this really just buys Nickname time. It doesn't, you know, end the game for red. And sometimes when you snipe your opponent's energy, you can end the game. That can be a win condition, essentially, depending on your enemy's, like your opponent's unit composition. These 5 red helicopters for Nickname aren't able to be used because of all these SAMs. They could be used to the south a little bit. But this is a great play from Nickname to send 4 helicopters to the to the bottom here. Because this is red territory, the helicopters are going to be able to land on this side. So they're going to be able to support this more heavily. And there's no SAMs for blue in the south here. There's no factory, in fact, that AK can use to counteract those 4 helicopters. And 4 helicopters, that's a decent amount. But can blue just win the fight in front of Nickname's base and then continue to push to win the game? Blue's now eradicated all the red territories on the left-hand side. Nickname has the trade route up. We see the coolest unit in Line War. It is the merchant ship. It's undisputed that merchant ships are the coolest unit in Line War. And as soon as the boat drops off its payload at the other the port, Nickname gets all that eco. 946 income for red, 1323 for blue. I believe that number will jump up a little bit for red once the merchant ship lands, but clearly there's a lot more blue territory than red territory, and conquering territory is ultimately the thing that gives you the most income. The map control, and every territory is worth 10 income, I believe, per minute, or something like that. Somebody can correct me in chat, or rather in the comments. So the good thing for red, Nickname jumped out of these defensive lines to try to go for a little bit of an offensive. But the sandbags are still here, so the units don't have to take that fatigue damage to dig in again. I can get rid of the lines. We all know what the lines are. It's going to be essentially just full attack commands for blue and full defense commands for red up here. But great SAM split. Some infantry going around the north to try to get a little bit of a surround on these units. And 2 infantry are on top of this helicopter. These helicopters for red in the bottom are huge. Maybe if Nickname could win this entire part of the map, maybe there's a comeback way for red to actually get back into this game. One of the barracks will go down and maybe this other factory. And the answer to the helicopters in the bottom right for AK is going to be build some interceptors. There's another one on the way, and there's one flying around right now. 1369 income for AK, 946 still for Nickname. Good defense, very good defense from red to the north of the main base. On the left-hand side, really not much to actually look at. AK is now sending all these units back towards the right-hand side of the map now that all the capping has been done. On the left-hand side, still has some infantry down here. They're going to cap the bottom left. And then, I mean, I guess it's just 2 SAMs and 2 commandos and an infantry that are going to cap the rest of the left-hand side. Which is not good news for Nickname, because that's a very large army for blue on the left-hand side that's making its way down to the bottom right. It's just 2 SAMs. AK's plan might be to send these helicopters in and try to destroy the SAMs right away with the helicopters. And if blue can do that, there's not really anything that Nickname can do after this point. Because there's only 1 SAM being created. In order to deal with this many helicopters, red would have to change all these factories into building only SAMs. But if red only builds SAMs, there's no way that many SAMs is going to be able to deal with this huge army from akamisc. Strong push from Nickname in the south. But I believe AK will just be able to continue building producers here around the mountains, and that's exactly what Blue's plan is, building. The 1 factory finishes, 2nd on the way, and a barracks behind, and then of course all of these units in about 20 years will actually be over here and able to get into the fight. But it's not going to matter if if AK is able to crack Nickname right now. So it's only one SAM left. 3 helicopters against one SAM. One helicopter had already shot all its rockets, which do a lot of the damage. But now again, Blue's got this perfect SAM count. These factories are likely not building as many SAMs. One of them is. The other one's building artillery pieces. I like this move from Nickname to try to jump on this airport, because Nickname probably recognizes that the only thing that is building anti-air units down here is this blue airport. And if Red can destroy this airport, then all 3 of these helicopters immediately, or all 3 of these blue interceptors immediately die, because they'll have nowhere to land. It's kind of just insurance. Nickname does have 5 SAMs, which is very good. But certainly now that there's no more airport to deal with, Red will be able to start building artillery pieces there. But in the north, looking very dire if you're Red. About to lose an airport. The refinery will also be destroyed, which means those helicopters for Nickname down in the south will not be able to run as frequently. And I think at this point there's nothing that Red could do to save all of these buildings. If anything, Nickname would have to drop back to this choke. Potentially that's what the plan is with these 2 barracks. To start rebuilding, but losing 3 factories and 4 barracks is just too tough. As long as AKA can hold in the south, this game is most certainly over. As mentioned, this is game 1 in a best of 3 between these 2 players. And this, I think, is the big sign. The fact that AK is going for industry at this point instead of putting down more producers makes me feel that Blue is very confident that they are in control right now. Taking out 2 helicopters, the ragdoll physics look phenomenal. Shout out to Vinfenzia. One of the best updates, I think, in Line War. I appreciate it, at least. And so this is just game 1. You can look at, there's going to be a link in the description for the bracket and what the different scores are. Obviously spoilers when you click on that link if you want to not know who actually won the game or won the series in general. But there you go, GG. That's a W for akamisc. Empire value graph. Income graph. Interesting game. I mean, it's spawns are so big in Line War. And, you know, Nickname is a little bit in the top right and wasn't, unfortunately, able to really break out of that. And clearly, AK shutting down the left-hand side was a enormous deal. But GG, well played. And I hope you're having a wonderful night, day, evening, whatever it is. Like, subscribe, comment, it all helps the channel grow. Line War Discord, I've already mentioned it. Anyway, we'll see you soon. Peace.